and the Secretary of State for Education claiming that children shouldn't really be taught or encouraged to have political opinions. Well, there is clear need, he said, for schools to address political issues in the classroom from time to time. This must not be done in a partisan way. What were these kids asked to do? They were asked to watch a segment from Newsround. I love Newsround. You can really tell someone's age by who they think of immediately. My age, John Craven, all day long. Your age, Krishna Guru Murthy, probably, or a few others. Beautiful show, a really, really good show, very important show. And always when you catch it by accident, when you're flicking around looking for the snooker, you were always struck by how grown up it is and how sensible it is. And I hate to say this because, well, I don't hate to say it, actually. Who am I trying to kid? It often treats the news in a much more professional and objective fashion than the Daily Mail ever has. So perhaps if the Daily Mail journalists that write crud like this were to watch Newsround, they might find themselves writing articles that are a little bit closer to what we were all brought up to believe proper journalism should look like, because they don't believe that a 10-year-old could watch Newsround detailing the party scandal and write a letter containing phrases like, "We also looked at people who we respect, and disappointingly our own Prime Minister has not made it onto this list. During this past week, I watched a story on BBC Newsround that stated our PM is under investigation for 12 parties that have apparently occurred, a few of which had over 100 people at them when we weren't even allowed to meet more than 2 people. The suggestion seems to be that a 10-year-old couldn't write that. And Nadhim Zahawi is saying that a 10-year-old shouldn't write that. And that is scary. That is really scary. Here is a news bulletin from the irrefutably objective BBC Newsround describing facts, not opinions, facts. The Prime Minister is under investigation for 12 parties. What makes this matter worse is that when he was questioned about it in Parliament, he said the following: "I have been reassured there was no party." This is a lie. Fact. Not feeling, not opinion, not newspaper editorial. Cold, hard fact. There is some opinion in this letter. As a consequence of the publication, the publicisation of all these parties, the lad writes, or the young girl writes, "This will now influence people to not listen to any new regulations and instead copy the footsteps of Boris Johnson. He is a hypocrite and can no longer be trusted as our leader and should resign as the country is not in the right hands." Hands up if you honestly don't think that I could have written that when I was 10 or you could have written that when you were 10. Absolutely, especially after watching Newsround. But the right-wing media is having an absolute hissy fit about it. Why? I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why. A Secretary of State for Education saying that children shouldn't be encouraged to have political opinions is absolutely terrifying. You talk about culture wars, you talk about cancelling, you talk about woke. A Secretary of State for Education saying that children should not in a classroom be encouraged to develop political opinions about what is happening before their very eyes. He was having a party. We weren't allowed to gather in groups of more than 2. And what makes it really ugly for Nadhim Zahawi, and then by association for the entire bloody country, what makes it really ugly is that Nadhim Zahawi is allowed to have an opinion about these parties, and funnily enough, he shared it this morning.
So, look, I think there is no doubt that the stories around parties have cut through. People were rightly angry to see that those who were making the rules have allegations put against them that they're not obeying the rules. I think the police are looking at all those allegations that Sue Gray has given them. I think they've got a reel and a half, hundreds of pages of report and pictures to look at.
No school should encourage young people to pin their colours to a political mast, says Nadhim Zahawi to the Labour-run council, which oversees Welbeck Primary School in Nottingham. So I am wondering when Nadhim Zahawi is going to crack down on all the schools, particularly the public schools. Perhaps you could start with Eton College, who run mock elections every time there is a general election in this country, because no school, he says, should be encouraging children to nail their colours or to pin their colours to a political mast. That is the most ridiculous thing you're going to hear. No, well, it isn't, is it? Because Nadine Dorries will probably speak before 12 o'clock today, or Liz Truss, or Priti Patel, or Gavin Williamson, or Dominic Raab, or Kwasi Kwarteng. Kwasi Kwarteng, the one who doesn't count crimes and then claims crimes have gone down. Priti Patel, the one who boasts about shoplifting going down during a period of our history when all the shops were shut. Liz Truss, who thinks that pork markets are going to be the example to the decision to become the only country in history to impose economic sanctions on itself. I cannot say to you at 30 minutes after 11 on Thursday that this is the most dangerous and stupid thing you're going to hear all day, because we are in Brexit Britain. And Jacob Rees-Mogg has just written an article for The Sun asking its readers to tell him why they did Brexit. What are the benefits? Quick, write to me. Tell me something that we can achieve 6 years nearly after the referendum. So this man, and I'll play it again, doesn't think that schools should encourage young people to pin their colours to a political mast. In the context here of all the parties that we know took place in Downing Street and the fact that they are under, the Prime Minister himself is under police investigation. So you watch a little news bulletin about that and you say to your class, write a letter to the Prime Minister. What on earth is wrong with that? Especially when the man telling the schools not to encourage the pupils to form opinions about the facts describes the facts like this.
So, look, I think there is no doubt that the stories around parties have cut through. People were rightly angry to see that those who were making the rules have allegations put against them that they're not obeying the rules. I think the police are looking at all those allegations that Sue Gray has given them. I think they've got a reel and a half, hundreds of pages of report and pictures to look at.
So 15 minutes after 11 is the time. I want to know simply what your children are saying about the parties. Okay, because there's two stories here. The Education Secretary on the one hand, the Leader of the House on the other. He says that in the real world, people aren't interested in the Downing Street parties. They parked the tanks on the lawn this morning with the champagne story or the fizzy wine story or whatever it was. I think Nadhim Zahawi at one point might have said, well, it doesn't really count as a party because there wasn't any alcohol there. And now there's a picture of the alcohol there. These are the contortions into which these people, and I would almost say these poor people, but I won't. These are the contortions into which these people have to tie themselves to defend a liar. And you don't have to be a 10-year-old pupil who's just watched Newsround to be able to state categorically and factually that Boris Johnson is a proven and serial liar. But the Secretary of State for Education is reduced to pretending that he doesn't think children should be able to say that in school. It's horrible. It's ugly. So you know what your children think about the parties because you've had conversations about it. You know what your 10-year-old thinks about Boris Johnson's parties because you've had conversations about it. You know what your 10-year-old thinks about Boris Johnson's parties because they watch Newsround and come to you and ask you questions. You know what your children think about the Downing Street parties. Two questions. What do they think about the Downing Street parties? And do they live in the real world? Where, according to the Leader of the House, Mark Harper, I think it is, nobody cares. Nobody cares about these parties. And that, of course, is the next gamble. That's the next stage of the con. Absolutely egregious and probably criminal behaviour. We can't deny it. What do? We deny it. We can't deny it anymore. They've got pictures. OK, we try to downplay it. We can't downplay it anymore. There's 12 of them. OK, we claim that they weren't really parties. We can't do that anymore. The police are involved. OK, we claim that they're... Oh, I don't know. No one cares. No one cares. No one cares about the parties that we were desperately trying to deny the existence of just 2, 3, 4 short weeks ago. No one cares about the contents of the report that we said we'd wait until we could see before deciding whether we were going to submit a letter of no confidence. How completely corrupt does your conscience have to be to move in the space of a month from saying this is absolutely awful, but I don't want to actually put a dagger in the Prime Minister's back until the full investigation has been completed, to saying, as Mark Harper did yesterday, I don't care what's in the investigation because the people don't care about the crimes. The people don't care about the crimes. And this, of course, is the same government that decides not to count some crimes in order to release completely bogus and manipulated figures, which this Prime Minister will then defend on his feet in the actual House of Commons. The same House of Commons where he told a vicious, far-right slur, demonstrably dishonest slur about the Leader of the Opposition. And I don't know why, but I think I've just turned into Jonathan Pye.